All right, guys, welcome to the Market Makers Weekly Mastermind. Today we have some special guests. You hear that all the time, but he's a really special guest. Zoga is a content specialist, and he produces, as a real estate professional, he produces all his buyer and seller leads off of his social media account. And Zoga's going to unpack what he does, how he built his 110,000 person following. And by the way, there might be other followers on different platforms. I'm just referencing his Instagram platform, which I'm going to show you here in a second. But Zoga and I met, I don't know, a few months back, and I've always been fascinated by his content and have followed him. And interestingly, I'm kind of now wrapped up in his little ecosystem as somebody who's really curious about what his next piece is going to be, because he basically, at the end of the day, addresses lifestyle. And I don't think you ever talk about real estate, Zoga. We're going to talk about that in a second, but he gets real estate leads and he doesn't even talk about real estate. So that's the irony about what he does. So without further ado, let's jump right into it really quickly. And let me introduce Zoga. Zoga, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in the business, and then we're going to go into what you do as a content strategist.
Sounds good. Well, John, thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words. So I've been in real estate. This is my third year, actually. Third year. The growth that you've seen on my social platform has only been over a month, over a 16-month span, right? Over 16 months, I was able to grow my page from less than 1,000 followers to 110,000+ followers. And that's just Instagram. I also have a big follow on TikTok as well.
Oh, and TikTok too. So we're looking at Zoga's Instagram right now, 110,000 followers in how long?
16 months. It's all organic, nothing paid. Everything has just been organic posts that has led to the growth that you have seen. And you could tell if it's something, if you could tell pretty easily if something is organic or not by the viewership, comments, shares, and so forth. Because sometimes you come across these fake, real estate influencers that might have 50, 100,000 followers, but they paid for those followers. They're not organic followers, and therefore it doesn't result to any business for them. It's just more so for show.
I say, it's vanity metrics.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, vanity metrics. Exactly.
You're going after.
I don't think you can underscore the importance of that enough. Like so many people.
Absolutely.
So many people use social media for vanity metrics, and I'm like, what's the ROI?
Yep.
And
correct. Yeah, you can't skip the work. You can't skip the hard work to get to where you need to be. So
tell us about how the social media has, number one, tell us your origin stories that relate to doing this kind of marketing. When did it hit you that you wanted to do this?
Absolutely.
And then when you started it, how long did you start seeing the payoff?
So I come from a pretty diverse background. Some of you know my story. I saw Omar there, Devin. I've spoken to them in the past. I came from banking and mortgage lending. I went into federal law enforcement, and then eventually I transitioned into real estate. But before transitioning into real estate, during the COVID years, I spent roughly about 2.5 years mastering the social media game, right? That's me spending thousands and thousands going to different masterminds, different seminars and so forth, and then applying it to another business that I had prior to getting into real estate. So by the time I got into real estate, I already kind of knew which direction I wanted to go with it. I studied the competition. I saw what everybody was doing. And I realized pretty early on that at least in the Orlando area, there wasn't that many big fish in the social media world. So it was easy for me to kind of take over in that space.
So you did some market research essentially. Let's start with that because most people don't do a lot of market research. And they end up changing strategies. And then what you end up seeing is there's really no continuity of message on their social media platform because they've pivoted so many times and really have never got their footing with one unique, like very narrow message, right?
Yeah.
So in your particular case, tell us about what are some of the elements of doing good market research before you actually launch or identify what marketing strategy you're going to have, what kind of messaging or avatar you're going to appeal to.
Absolutely. So the very first thing I noticed when I came to Orlando, because I'm not from Orlando originally, I've been here about 7 years now, was how oversaturated it is with realtors here. Okay. So the very first thing I did was look at the statistics. How many realtors are in Florida? So I figured out that there's 1.5 million realtors nationwide, and 250,000 of them are just in Florida alone. So just Florida alone, you have 1/6 of all the realtors in all 50 states. That just shows you how saturated it is. The next step I took was, okay, I lived in Lake Nona, so I already knew who some of the big realtors were in that particular zip code, right? You had your Peter Lewis and Kevin Kendricks and so forth, all great guys that I got to meet in person. And I noticed every zip code had its own kind of realtor that was farming that area. But I didn't want to belong to one zip code. I wanted to be all across Orlando and Central Florida. Okay. So for me, I started looking at how can I compete with some of these people, right? It cannot be on mailers. It cannot be on the traditional route, because I could learn those things, but the learning curve behind it would take me a while to catch up to what they're doing. What I could actually be able to kind of rise above was the social media, because most of them were not on social media. Okay. Some of these people that I mentioned. The only people that I saw on social media at the time was Ken Pozek and I think one other person on there. That was about it, as far as like having some good numbers. Everything else was up for the taking when I started 2 years ago. Okay.
So interesting. So despite the oversaturation of agents in Florida and Central Florida, there's a saturation within that pot, right? So despite that, you noticed that there was an opportunity to dominate social media, at least within this pocket. Was your initial focus to just focus on this part of Orlando, like the submarket here?
Yeah, well, it was actually more of just all of Central Florida, so Orlando and beyond, right? So it wasn't just Orlando. If you look at my videos, I go to all the suburbs as well, right? Up to 45 minutes to an hour out of Orlando, and I cover those areas as well.
Okay, so
because
and would you have done it that way again, as far as your target area?
Absolutely. Because my goal is to eventually expand to all of Florida, right? So I started with Central Florida. Eventually, I'm gonna be able to kind of go into Tampa area, South Florida, and so forth with my content and social media.
Let's talk about
Go ahead, Chad.
Things like this, like when you, and by the way, congrats on just jumping in and trying something. And usually that ends up being a messy beginning until you learn, and then you start to gain structure to it. I'd like to hear you talk about your content strategy, if you had a content strategy in the beginning. If not, when did that start to develop where you could see the opportunity? And then what is your strategy to scale this? Because I think most people are hesitant. They don't really get traction on a content strategy because there is no strategy, and they're just, I need to post something as their strategy. And I think that's where people get discouraged. So talk about your journey into like planning what you would shoot, when you would post it, and what that looks like as you scale across the state versus just in a localized market.
Absolutely. So the strategy started with identifying your avatar. That's the very first step of any marketing strategy, figuring out who are you crafting this message for? Who are you trying to sell to?
But did you start that way in the very beginning?
I did. So my avatar was people relocating to the area. It wasn't people that lived here. It was people coming here. Okay, that was my avatar, my target demographic. The reason for it is because most people that grew up in Florida, they already knew 10 to 20 realtors. I didn't want to go after them. Okay, it would be kind of going up against the grain for me as far as getting new clients. Those moving to the area, they don't know nobody here. So they're looking for somebody who's an expert, a local expert in the area. That's why my marketing strategy focused on them instead of the locals. Now, as a byproduct of the content I created, I started getting a lot of locals that follow me because they're like, damn, I've been here all my life. I didn't even know this stuff existed. Boom, click, let me follow this guy, right? But they weren't my target audience, right? It was people relocating here. And to this day, the majority of the people I'm doing business with, I would say 80 to 20, 80% of it is people relocating here. And then 20% of them are locals.
That's interesting. Now, go ahead, Chad.
Sorry, I'm a geek for content strategy because I've built and sold companies on organic marketing only. I'm curious, like the nature of the content. What's your 80-20? Is it more logic or more emotionally appealing? Like, is it practical information or is it more lifestyle information? Like how I call it
I call it edutainment, which is a mixture of education and entertainment all combined into one. So I'm still going to provide value to you, but still making it, sorry, this thing keeps falling, still make it entertaining enough to retain your attention. Sorry, 1 second here. I don't know what happened. There you go.
No rush.
All right, you guys can say.
So with what you've learned in this local market, like it sounds like you started more strategically than most, but what have you learned doing this locally that you think will really help you scale up and be able to do it at a state level?
So, well, for me, first of all, I started with the local level because, again, I don't know if I'm going to talk about something, I have to be an expert in it, right? So the very first thing I did was kind of explore all of Orlando and Central Florida. Now, I go out a lot, so it came to me natural to kind of explore every inch of Central Florida and Orlando as far as lifestyle, restaurants, bars, clubs, real estate, etc. John, I know you mentioned earlier that you see more lifestyle versus real estate. I would say that's not really the case. I have 4 pillars of content, okay? One of the pillars is the lifestyle part, the things to do, the restaurants, the bars, the clubs, and so forth. The second pillar is new construction. I do a lot of new construction videos, okay? Not necessarily on a particular floor plan, but more so on the community, on the new construction community. The third pillar is what's being built in Orlando from a residential and commercial aspect, right? Like what's coming to the area. And then the fourth stuff is more so just value-driven information.
What are
my 4
examples of the value? Is it just practical market report information, like economic information?
Yeah, it could be
jobs.
Correct. It could be something market related. It could be maybe sometimes I've done stuff where I'm doing like a green screen of a new article that just came out talking about, let's say, what our governor just passed and so forth. So things of that essence.
I haven't heard you talk about schools, but I know that's, working with residential buyers, that's always a big factor.
Well, yeah, but you got to remember that could be considered steering in some form or another. I try to shy away from crime in schools, as you know, in real estate. That's kind of hot topic. So I don't get into that. I don't get into that much. During my consultation with them, I could, work around that, but not in the videos.
Yep.
You trying to get them in trouble for your housing?
Right. I think it's
yeah.
I just think it's fair to show people landmines too.
Yeah.
No, and I've done stuff. Example, I've done videos regarding private schools and the grants that are out there for private schooling and so forth. But I haven't went into rate the schools themselves, right? Because again, that could be an issue with fair housing.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. So, do you work the leads yourself, Zoga, or do you pass them on to?
I do.
By the way, tell us about that. Your business.
I'm a solo agent. I have a videographer and retainer. So when I started doing content, first I started doing it myself, right, like anybody else. But I realized very quickly how much of a waste of my time that was, because the content wasn't coming out the way I wanted it to, right? I was trying to fly a drone. I must have crashed it 2 or 3 times during the process. So just the amount of time going into it, the learning curve, it just wasn't worth it for me. So instead, what I did is I had a piece of property that I sold. I took that money, I set that budget aside for a year to hire a videographer that will edit my content, video, record, and edit. I'm still coming up with the scripts, still coming up with the visuals. I'm pretty much the producer, writer, and actor, and he's the videographer and editor. If that makes any sense.
How much do you budget for something like that? Or how much would an agent, would you recommend an agent budget for that?
It all depends. I'm paying $4,000 a month, just to give you an idea.
Okay, that's pretty good. And how many videos are you putting out a month, would you say?
So because a lot of the videos that we do, they're not like stationary, we're kind of all over the map. We do about 15 videos a month. So usually about 3 a week, but they're all quality videos, right? Multiple edits, we'll spend several hours per video.
Let's talk about.
You were saying that you cluster the production of your videos as well.
We do. Yeah, so we'll set up 1 day a week, sometimes 2. Usually I'll record on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Gotcha.
Let's talk about channels. I see one of the most common mistakes I see in social media is everybody tries everything at once. And it seems like you were smart enough to focus on a single channel. Are you now
Yes.
cross-posting or reposting? And is there a plan to scale across channels? Or is it just to stay focused on Instagram and scale that footprint?
Absolutely. So no, it is to be omnipresent on every platform out there. For example, I started with short format content to begin with, and that was intentional. It wasn't by accident. Okay. I avoided YouTube. I went straight to social media because I knew YouTube is you get much better leads on YouTube than social media,
Right.
but it's a longer process to grow. I knew with social media, I could get going right away. I could get my name out there fast. And that's why I focused on social media. I knew the growth was there, right? That's why I was able to grow it so fast in 1.5 years.
Yep.
Yeah,
Now I do take the content that I post on Instagram and I repost it on TikTok. However, it's not going to perform as well because TikTok, the way they consume content on TikTok is very different than Instagram. TikTok rewards volume over quality, and they reward organic content, meaning, you flip the camera around, not something that's very polished. Whereas Instagram rewards a more polished type of content.
Mm-hmm.
So I still post it on TikTok. So for example, on TikTok, I have about 22,000 followers compared to 110,000 followers on Instagram. And it's the exact same content, but you can see how different it performs, right?
Yep. If I get you into the territory where you're like, it's none of your damn business, that blows my plan, please say so. But I'm really curious, like Instagram was the first step in your strategy. What's the progression from here? Which platform do you focus on next and why? And then what's after that and why?
Sorry. So because I'm switching up my avatar a little bit, you guys can still see me?
You turn video off.
Sorry.
You're back.
I just bought this holder for the phone while I'm here waiting for my wife to upgrade her phone, and it keeps falling off this car holder. The next progression for me is YouTube and LinkedIn.
Okay. And
the reason for LinkedIn is because I'm trying to go after a more affluent demographic.
Mm-hmm.
And YouTube because of the SEO.
So will you use the same content as a native post in each platform, or will you do specific content for the other platforms?
No, I'm going to be switching to specific. Obviously, it's going to be a lot more time consuming on my end. And I have to hire a different videographer for YouTube. See, that's the thing, right? Every videographer, sometimes they specialize in certain things. And you might have to find somebody specific for each platform. Okay. Mm-hmm. So right now, my focus this year is to start my YouTube channel and my LinkedIn channel.
So where would you recommend an agent, if they don't have a social media presence, they want to start to create content? Where would you recommend them start? Which platform?
It doesn't matter. It's a matter of picking one and sticking to it. So whichever one you understand the best, whichever one you already have some presence or understand how it works, because it's all about speeding up that learning curve, right? Stick with that and go 100% in. Don't get too distracted with every single platform out there. Pick one, conquer it, and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah, that's good. And then for those that don't like, there's a lot of faceless channels now that you're hearing about because some people just don't do well on camera. Tell us about were you natural on camera, and then tell us about how that has kind of evolved for you, your skill of being on camera. And then number two, what you recommend to people who don't go on camera. Can they go the faceless route, or is that just a skill you just need to learn?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, right? You have to have the confidence to be able to be in front of a camera. Now, for the longest, I didn't have a social media. Like I said, I told you before, I was a federal agent, so we weren't supposed to have any sort of social media presence at the time. I did a lot of undercover work. I started my social media channel maybe like, I don't know, 2018, 2019. I might post once a year just to let my family overseas know that I'm okay. I'm still alive. I was never the guy that will kind of be in front of the camera or on social media, just to kind of give you an idea of where I'm coming from with this. The moment I realized how powerful social media was, that's the moment I made that conscious decision. I got to get in front of the camera and I gotta go 100% in on this. Okay. And I got a lot of family and friends who are in the social media world, and I got to witness firsthand how much it changed their life from a financial perspective.
That's interesting. Do you have, so if somebody isn't comfortable being on camera, you just suggest, hey, it's really important that you put your face on camera, especially maybe in our industry. And that's just a skill you learn to get comfortable with.
Yeah. So what I tell people is better to fail when you only have 100 followers and you mess up in front of 100 followers versus when you have 100,000 or 1,000,000 people watching you. Right. So if you're going to fail now. This is your batting practice. Right.
Yeah.
So it's okay to mess up now. It's only 100 people seeing you. Imagine when you have thousands and millions, right? Very different then.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so get comfortable being on camera, bottom line. And
absolutely. Now, just to add to it, you mentioned the faceless videos. I've seen realtors do amazing with faceless videos where they just do where they showcase just the property and they still do amazing lead generation. The reason why I chose to be in front of the camera, you cannot build a personal brand if you don't show your face. That's the reason why I chose to go this route versus the faceless route.
Now, interestingly, if you scale this across Florida, what's your goal doing that? Because you can't, obviously, Zoga isn't going to be this. I remember us talking, it's interesting. This has happened to me before where if they see you on their phone all the time or their PC, and then all of a sudden they meet you in person, there's a little bit of starstruckness, right? And credibility is instant. Like they're rated. There's no trying to build rapport, trust. That's already been done. The ball's already on that like field goal position. So how do you plan on leveraging, like, why are you doing all of Florida if you're not going to be the agent working with them? Is this for referrals or what's the goal?
Well, because the trust is already there. And if I do refer it to somebody in Miami and so forth, it's somebody I would have vetted. And that's somebody that's going to represent my name and brand very well, you know. But I traveled to Miami a couple of weeks ago. I was getting recognized even over there, and I'm like, but I don't really cover Miami. But that just shows you how much exposure you get with social media, right? It's not just local. If I look at my demographics, out of the 110,000 followers, only 20% of it is local. The rest of them are New York, Miami, all over the map, right? It's not just here.
Yeah, totally, because of that avatar. And let me ask you this: what is the difference between what you and Ken Kozak do? Would you say, like, what's the distinction? And there's there leverage points that you're trying to take advantage of, where there are gaps in his strategy versus yours? Because
I can't speak on his because again, I haven't had that conversation with him to know exactly what he's doing. From the outside looking in, his strategy was more so always from the beginning, at least from what I could see, was the real estate route, maybe showcasing the neighborhoods and also maybe what's coming to the area as far as based on what's out there, right, on the different business journal articles. My approach was very different. Was I also showed the lifestyle. Nobody else was doing that. Nobody was doing the restaurants. Nobody was doing, at least from what I could see at the time. I'm sure everybody's doing it now, but when I started it, nobody was doing that. You didn't see realtors going to restaurants, highlighting the restaurant. Nobody was doing it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
let's talk about your keyword or SEO strategy within. I mean, right now it's confined to Instagram. Do you rely on the algorithm to distribute, or are you strategic in your hashtags and your keywording?
the hashtags are not as important. I still add them just out of habit. What's important now is your description. It's the text overlay that you put on your video, because all of that is SEO, right? Now, all of that could be searched now. So that's way more important than your hashtag.
And are you planning these in your video shoots? Do you know what keyword you're focusing on before you shoot that video? You know what you're doing next week and the next week, right?
Absolutely. And the biggest thing too, you got to focus on is your opening, is your hook.
Yeah.
We spent, I would say, maybe 60% of the time crafting the first 10 seconds of the video, then we do the rest of the video.
Yep. So because we have a wide audience here, you've done a lot of things. You've missed making a lot of the mistakes that I've seen most people make. So congrats. Like that's huge. You just sitting down and having a plan goes a long ways. For anyone who's watching this or on here live, like if you're thinking, well, that, you know, I don't know how I could do that. For example, he very nonchalantly talks about hiring a videographer. And when I move to this platform, I'll just hire another one. That alone is a stumbling block that I've seen very few people overcome in their markets. If you're in your market, like in the Orlando market, you've got Full Sail University. They have a film school. They have to have projects. They have to have, you know, they have to have internship hours or employment hours or both, or they have already graduated and they need help. I've hired videographers like the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. It's so easy to get guys with really good equipment. But one thing I want to point out is that he started with a clear strategy in mind. And that's why it never felt overwhelming. He was focused on one platform. He was planning the content. He knew which keywords he wanted to target. So the video, you haven't said this, but I assume producing content comes pretty easily to you because there's a plan. You know the purpose of the video. And where I see most people stumble is, and the reason they're shy on camera is because they don't have a strategy much or a plan. They don't know what to say. They don't know what would make this a good video. And back all the way to the beginning, they don't know who their avatar is. They don't know who they're speaking to. That's why the camera makes them nervous. So the things that we haven't, you know, specifically talked about here that I really want to underscore the mistakes you didn't make and the limitations that most people encounter that weren't limitations to you, because you actually looked at this as a business strategy. And I've seen so many people waste so much time and energy just trying to post something on every platform, not even knowing who it's for, why they're doing it. And it's no surprise they don't get much traction. They don't have 100,000 followers in 16 or 18 months.
So another thing I want to add to it is I did make a few mistakes early on, right? However, I set a goal that I was going to create content for a year. And if I didn't see results, then I would change my strategy.
Yeah.
Okay. I did not get my first lead, just to give you an idea, because a lot of people give up way too soon. I didn't get my first lead until 3 months into it.
I wanted to talk about that too. How did that lead come? Was it through the comment section, or was it through branding and they called you? Like, what is the percentage of on platform leads versus off platform leads that are a direct result of the content?
All of them are, I would say the majority of it is from the platform, right? So depending on the call to action that I provide in the end, whether it's click the link in the bio, whether it's comment this word, and I have ManyChat automate, obviously, for where do they go after. But it's usually either through the comments or through going directly by clicking the link on my Instagram.
Are you using?
So the very first comment, the very first lead did come that way.
And so you're not directing them outside of the platform like a squeeze page or your website. They're just coming to you from inside. And then are you using ManyChat, or is there any other tools that you recommend for people?
So ManyChat could be useful, but it could also be detrimental as well. So when I first started, I wasn't using ManyChat. Okay. And I was actually early on, because you could afford to do so, to respond to every comment yourself. As you grow and you're getting hundreds and thousands of DMs, it's hard to keep up with it unless you have a VA or have it automated. Okay. But in the beginning, I was responding to every DM by myself.
Okay. And
making sure that everybody's taken care of.
Appreciate that. If you guys don't know what ManyChat is, it's whenever you see somebody in a video saying, hey, comment Orlando below, and I'll send you X, Y, and Z, or it kind of automates a response to specific words that you program the software to use. And so what Zoga is saying is that he doesn't use that. In the beginning, it became useful. I mean, it wasn't useful because you can just respond automatically, just manually, and see all the conversations. But when you start getting to the point, like you were saying, you can't keep up with the DMs and all the comments. How important, let's speak to, how do you either automate or respond to comments? How important is it to be interactive on comments?
And as an extension of that, if you don't mind showing, like, what is the life cycle of a lead from comment all the way through to your CRM to prospect, whatever, if you have drip campaigns, like what's the nurture sequence from, just walk us through the funnel, beginning with any video on Instagram until they're a closed homeowner. What's that funnel look like?
So I'm not using a funnel. Okay. I don't have it down packed that way. It's again, my road to success was I didn't expect it to grow this fast, this rapidly. So right now I'm still working on fixing and implementing certain systems in place. Okay. For me, everything went through my Calendly. Okay. There was no funnel. They went straight to booking that call. And these were all warm leads. Okay. I didn't have to convince them. They already built that likeness, trust. They knew who I was. And one of the things that a lot of people struggle with nowadays is getting their buyers to sign that BBA. I have no issue. I have 100% BBA.
Yeah.
Everybody signing, no issue there at all. Okay.
That's
You've
interesting.
So
already
for me,
built trust and
yeah.
credibility on the front end.
Correct. So I don't have to convince you they're already ready to do business. It's just that some of them are ready to buy a house now. Some of them a year from now. Some of them are just looking. You get all types of leads. And then I get also a lot of businesses that just want me to highlight their business as well. Because what I did was I didn't create multiple links. For example, I know that some realtors, they might have like a link tree with multiple links. The way social media works is that you want them to take just one singular action.
Right.
If they have to click through 3 different buttons to get to where you want them to, you already lost them. So I could have a link tree with multiple links with different things, but no, I just have one link because all I want you to do is one thing. I want you to schedule that call, whether you're buying, selling, no matter what you're trying to do.
You're absolutely right. And like, so you said you don't have a funnel. I respectfully argue that you do. It's a very simple, effective funnel. So video, call to action, Calendly, live phone call, and I'm sure your Calendly is probably integrated with your CRM. So when they book the call, they become a lead in the CRM, right?
Yep.
So it's not that you don't have a funnel. You have a very effective, simple funnel, which is
I just don't
really
have I guess like your traditional landing page and so
Yeah.
forth, right? It just goes to the Calendly. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how important is it to engage in conversation? Like, I mean, are you like Gary V looking through your comments all day long and interactions? And
I try to, because that's part of cultivating your audience, right? If you automate everything, you're going to lose them at some point.
yeah,
They have to feel like they're still part of your ecosystem, like they're still talking to you or somebody connected to you versus talking to an AI or a computer all day long, you know?
yeah. So how much time would you say you spend managing your own social media and interacting with people on your own social media?
So I try to limit it to usually 1.5 hours a day of just like responding to DMs. I set aside the first half hour after I post a new reel or video just to be able to respond to all the messages, because that helps with the reel performing way better, right? That initial first hour of you posting something, you want to make sure you're on top of it, responding to every comment and so forth.
That's a really good tip. People probably just set it, forget it. They publish it.
No.
They don't look back. They might check to see what the engagement is, but they're not actually.
Because the algorithm is looking at the interaction, the exposure, how many shares, comments, and so forth in that first few minutes. And if you don't perform well within those first few minutes, it's not going to show it to more people. That's why it's so important, that first hour of you posting.
Yeah, interesting. Guys, if you have, we're just going to keep asking questions if you guys don't, because we have plenty of questions. But if there is something you want to ask that we haven't addressed, raise your hand in the chat and we'll call on you, okay?
I'd like to talk to you about, I mean, you seem like you're very strategic in business. At what point do you think it will make sense for you to hire a social media manager where you always have immediate response in your voice, where it's not the first 10 minutes you're paying attention, all hours of the day, someone is dedicated to that?
Yeah. Once I make enough money. All right. Look, I'm on my 2.5 year. I'm gonna be very honest because I don't like to bullshit around. Last year I only did 250,000. Okay. So last year I did 10 million in revenue. My first year I did 5 million in revenue. I mean in gross sales. I mean, so again, as I get to, I'm paying pretty much almost 50,000 a year just on videography. So for me to add another element to it, I have to justify the cost.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why.
That's an incredible jumpstart though, man, to generate. How much of those sales, how much of your volume would you say you attribute to your social media accounts versus organically, people you're finding outside of that?
I would say 90% of it.
90% right from. So to take complete strangers, that's a great success story. Within that short amount of time to take that many complete strangers to come and do business with you and have already trust and rapport built by the time that you're on that first phone call with them is insane. That's a great business model.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
Yeah, someone had asked, what's the best time to post?
There's no such thing. There's no such thing. That's a lie. I don't think there's a perfect time. Obviously, you're not going to post, between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., when nobody's on the platform. But as far as like picking a specific time, that stuff used to work before. It's no longer the case. It really comes down to how good your content is. Okay, just like the hashtags are not as relevant anymore. There are certain times that you may want to post. For example, I might post my lifestyle video on a Thursday instead of a Monday because I know Thursday, Friday, Saturday, everybody's going out. They're going to be looking for things to do. So in that way, I'm strategic with when I'm posting, but it's not necessarily the time of day per se. If that makes any sense.
That does.
Yep. Another question was, what video categories tend to get the best views, comments, and the leads? So do you notice of your 4 pillars, do you notice any one that tends to get more engagement or more leads? And also talk about the quality of the leads based on the pillars.
They all do for different reasons, okay? But for the reasons of as far as generating leads, it's the real estate, okay? The lifestyle is just supplemental, okay? And sometimes I was getting to the point where I was getting too many lifestyle followers and not enough real estate followers. And I had to scale it back a little bit. Be like, let me do a little less of that. Let me do a little bit more of this. Because I'm always big on seeing what converts,
Mm-hmm.
The real estate video is always going to convert for you because obviously if they're in the market for a house or for a particular neighborhood and so forth, they're going to contact you. And that's when you're going to have the call to action from it. Everything else just kind of builds up your credibility as the go-to person in the area, the expert, and so forth.
Let's talk about conversion rates. How many views or comments does it take to produce one quality lead? Like, what's the conversion from watch to engagement and engagement to client?
I don't have it down to that science like that, to be honest with you, Chad. It's
the reason I asked, the coach is trying to come out in me. I know we haven't met, but
yeah,
I can't help myself. Like with 110,000 followers, you can do 250,000 in revenue. How many followers do you need to do $500,000 in revenue so you can scale? You have an entire content team. That's where my mind wants to go to help you grow.
Oh, I see. I see.
So I would encourage you to look at that. And also with 90% of your revenue coming from this strategy, I would challenge you to look at this as a marketing campaign, like the number one most investable thing in your business because it's working. Like the next best thing for you to invest in is probably more content and not at the cost of your lifestyle. So that next hire could be a 20-hour a week fractional social media manager for $25,000 a year. But the ROI on that, if you go to 200,000 followers, the ROI could in theory be $250,000 or 10 to 1.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you're doing so many things right. I would look at
I'm wearing a lot of hats right now. So again, I'm taking, like the last month, I've been taking a step back to kind of truly analyze every aspect of my business and see what areas I need to focus on.
Yeah, I'm sure. There were a couple of facetious comments that rolled in when you said I only made 250,000. You obviously are someone that holds yourself to an incredibly high standard. You're well above average in the industry. Most people are spending more on marketing than they're spending a lot more on marketing than you are. But as you step back from that and kind of look at it and analyze it, don't forget to pat yourself on the back. You've accomplished something that most never will in their first 3 years. But also look at this and say, what if I was doing direct mail? I have friends that spend $60,000 a month just on direct mail each month in 2 markets. So what you're doing is very scalable from a financial standpoint. It's a very small investment compared to circle prospecting, neighborhood campaigns. Look what people spend on paid ad campaigns with with a 1% conversion rate or 100-to-1 ratio. So you have a very high converting funnel that's very simple. It's not that expensive. Now, how can you reclaim your time and become the mentor? Like, you're obviously forward thinking and you're very well planned out. Just trying to get someone to work inside of a content planner is damn near impossible, like with an average person. You've held yourself to that discipline for years now, and you can teach that. And like, you could handle $1 million a year in GCI if you had 4 people meeting with videographers, and potentially even they become a team persona where it's not always your face on video. But congrats on the progress you've made. Like, none of this is a criticism, just suggestions.
No, I appreciate it. Listen, I'm always open to criticism. I love it.
Let's see what other questions we have from the participants here. Alyssa says, when the hell do you sleep?
Yeah, it is like a second job. I'm not gonna lie. It definitely takes a lot out of it. But again, like any other business, those first few years, you gotta make a lot of sacrifices. And I knew what I was signing up for.
Yeah. Zoga, who do you follow for guidance on how you evolve your content strategy game?
Well, number one, you gotta follow the CEO of Instagram, right? You're on his platform.
Oh.
John, I didn't want to interrupt. Did you lose audio too?
No, I was muting everybody. I accidentally muted Zoga. Hold on, Zoga. We got to unmute you. Can you unmute yourself, Zoga?
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, you were saying follow the CEO of Instagram.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, remember, he's the brains behind what works with the algorithm and what they want you to do. So that's the very first person. You are using his platform. That should be the very first person that you're following to understand what Instagram is trying to do, where they're headed, all that. Right? Because he does go on there. He does a great job going on there weekly, answering questions about what people have regarding Instagram, the algorithm, and the different tools and so forth.
That's great. Yeah. Who else do you follow? Personalities, influencers that teach this very thing?
I just follow different politicians. It's not nobody specific to like social media per se, you know, because I try to stay on top of all the trends and what's happening and what works, what doesn't work. But the one person I do follow, like I said, is the Instagram CEO and also the Instagram creators account as well.
Okay, interesting. Any other resources you recommend to somebody who wants to build and evolve their social media game?
I mean, yeah. So you mentioned ManyChat, another resource you're gonna have to use for the video editing. Instagram now has edits, right? So you always want to use something that's native to the platform versus something that is not.
Okay. So if there is a tool that mimics something that the platform offers, use the platform's version.
Yeah. I remember the way the algorithm works is based on the type of prompts that you put in. So every video that you put in is a prompt. Okay. So that's why I was telling you earlier, you have to really niche down and figure out who your avatar is. Because every time you put out a piece of content, if you don't have a strategy, if you don't have, the algorithm doesn't know what to do with that. And that's why you're not growing. That's why it doesn't know who to show it to, because you don't have a strategy. You don't know what you're doing. You know?
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yep. Nick has his hand up. Nick, feel free to unmute and ask your question.
So I know you're a single agent. I'm part of a team. You give any advice out to like team members who are working within a team structure on building your social? We've been discussing building our social platform greater and better than it is now. So coming from a team approach versus single agent.
Well, again, I think your target client is still going to be the same, whether you're a team or a single agent, unless you're looking to recruit. Then
Well,
obviously
like I'm a buyer's agent on the team, so my team leader does a lot of does the listing. So coming in at, would you suggest the videos be done together or just
Is this
focus on?
are you referring to the social media page for the team or for the individual agents within the team?
Well, there's both. So platforming it
So I will
out.
collaborate. I will
Mhm.
collaborate with the team on every video, right? So you'll be your post collaborating with the team. And whether you're making videos highlighting the property that you just listed, or if you are a buyer's agent, maybe highlighting a new construction community or whatever the case is, you can still do it as a collaboration, and it will probably perform better because now you're tapping into both audiences.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So this is something, Nick, I might come back to you, but I'm curious whether, like, for me, like what you're creating is a sellable brand. Like this is a business asset. Right now, it might seem like a lead gen funnel, but when you have 500,000 followers and you're ready to retire, what do you think the disposition strategy is for that? Have you thought about that? And Nick, that's kind of, this answer is for you to consider, because if you're working on a team, if you see yourself retiring with that team, maybe it's great that you build the team's social media presence and audience. If you think, well, I'm a 1099 contractor, I want to stay nimble and be able to go between teams or between brokerages, then it's probably going to be a different strategy for you. You can support the team through a personal strategy, but you own that. You own the audience, and if you ever leave, you take it with you. So I'd like to hear like what Zoga, what your thoughts are on what you're building. Do you look at it as a business asset or a lead funnel right now?
No, it's a business asset. It's always been a business asset. That's the reason why I started building a personal brand. So I didn't share this with you guys because you didn't ask the question, but a lot of the videos that I do, I get brand deals on, and that offsets my costs for my marketing, right? So when I do a big video for Zillow, I got paid thousands for Zillow. I did a video for, let's say, Brightline Trains. I got paid a lot of money for that, right? So because I'm building my personal brand, if I ever decide to, even if I switch careers and I left real estate for whatever reason, which is not the case, the point is the personal brand is still there, right? If I decided to become a financial advisor tomorrow, guess what? The trust that I built my audience is still there. I can still convert that to whichever direction I decide to go with.
Now, let's say you're flush with cash, you've got your retirement built, and you're ready to exit. What's that look like to you?
What will be the next steps for me
Yeah. How
after
do
real
you,
estate? Or
would you try to sell the channel as a business asset? Like it's obviously valuable. You have brands that are willing to pay thousands of dollars, but
no, because that's the personal brand, right? If I wanted to sell it, I would have created a theme page. I would have created a page that doesn't reflect my name on it per se, right? For example, you mentioned Ken earlier. Ken has the Orlando Reel. That's considered a theme page. If you ever wanted to monetize that, maybe that's his plan, he could sell that because that's a lead generation tool.
Right.
But my own personal page, that's not, I mean, you wouldn't sell the rights to your name and likeness to a company per se, right?
No, it's why I never branded my name, because
Yeah. So
in the beginning I was looking at it as one day I'm not going to want to do this. So I created brands. It's easier to get traction early on if you're creating a personal brand, but you have a more sellable asset in the future if you create a scalable brand that anyone can run.
So there was something that stuck with me a while back that I heard one of my mentors tell me. He said, in the beginning, you get paid for what you do. Next, you get paid for what you know. And last but not least, you get paid for who you are. That's the power of personal branding.
Yeah.
Right now, you could do whatever you want with that. So if you think about the big celebrities and all that, athletes, they get paid for who they are now. They could leave the sport, they could leave whatever, they could still monetize who they are in whatever capacity they would like.
Yep. And a counterpoint to my argument is JP Morgan's been gone for a long time, but JP Morgan's alive and well. So you can actually, if you want that to become a legacy brand, it's certainly possible.
That's great, Zoga. So what questions haven't we asked you that we should have asked you?
AI.
Yeah, let's go there. That's a topic that's on Chad's heart.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of different ways I use AI. Okay. Yeah, you could obviously use it. I mean, I've been creating content now for almost 2 years now. So at some point you're gonna come across a writer's block. So AI is great for, ChatGPT and so forth for ideation, but you still have to put your own sauce to it. You can still have to personalize it, right? You don't just take what it gave you and start reading that out loud, right? It's gonna come off very robotic, and it's not gonna come out authentic to your voice. So I do use AI for ideation. I use AI for effective communication with my clients, which I feel like is the number one thing everybody should be using it for, because for a couple reasons. For example, I'll give you an example. If I know I have a client who is a C personality and I'm trying to get them to do X, I'll put all that in there and I'll have AI craft an amazing message that will get them from point A to point B based on the personality type.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. People don't consider that. It's a pretty psycho ninja way to use AI just to translate to a different communication style for somebody.
That's
Correct.
the federal agent showing through. What's his MBTI? How can I get him to do what I want him to?
So, for example, I do a lot of phone consultations. Sometimes I'm on the road, as I am today. I'll take that phone call. I'm recording it because now on iPhone you can record the call. They get notified, so there's no privacy concern. They get notified the call is being recorded. And obviously, I tell them ahead of time I'm going to record the call. I'll take that, transcribe it, throw that into ChatGPT. I tell ChatGPT, tell me their pain points, what they're looking to do, all that. Now I have it down packed to exactly who they are, what they're looking to do, based on their tonality, based on everything about them. It saves me time. I don't have to take notes. I'm able to take all that and get it, put it up in the CRM and go from there.
Zoga, we need to keep in touch because we have there's a platform that's existed now, but it's not publicly available where I can automate that workflow, push it right back into your CRM, score the lead, and create your follow-up campaign. That's what I've been geeking out on. So you're doing so many progressive things that I don't know that you're giving yourself credit, but
I'm trying to listen. I'm a chess player, so I try to always be a couple steps ahead of everybody else as much as I can.
The other thing, I assume you have a well-organized content library with the raw video, the native videos, right?
Yeah,
that's huge. As we progress into the age of AI, for anyone watching this, keep everything, be more organized with video files than you've ever been before. One of the things that I'm working on right now is the last 12 years of my life. A lot of it have been spent on camera as a coach, as a teacher. And I'm actually working on, well, I won't let the cat out of the bag, but I'm now repurposing that. Like when I sell companies, I keep follow-on rights for the content. So I knew this was coming and the tech just wasn't there 5 years ago, but I have follow-on rights. So I can literally have AI churn through thousands of hours of video and do what would take humans months, it can do in days. And that comes down to transcribing the content, categorizing the content. So eventually you can let an LLM get into your raw video file library and say, listen, I need you to extract every clip, every word of me talking about this neighborhood and compile that into a highlight reel, or compile that into a custom GPT. And then you have, this neighborhood has its own GPT where you are the expert. It's speaking in your voice with your tonality, with your language, and it's working 24 hours a day. And if somebody wants to engage with you about a very specific topic, they can go as deep as they would like, and the LLM is doing the work. And when they're ready to convert, it comes back to you. Now that's progressive. That funnel could be built today if you wanted to, but in the next 12 months, it's going to be unbelievable. So if any of this has inspired any of you guys, go make videos. I agree. Your face needs to be on the video. If you're going to do business face to face, be willing to give them information, camera, face to face. but be very meticulously organized in your content folders, because you will find ways that we can't even fathom right now in the next 12, 24 months to repurpose that. It's amazing how quickly things are moving, which makes work that was not even feasible a year ago simple now. But, well, we're at the top of the hour with an empty queue. So if nobody has anything else, we'll let you get back to your day, Zoga.
So
Absolutely. I did want to add one more thing, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
When you guys go out, because you mentioned earlier, what are some questions you guys didn't ask? When you're out there creating content, please make a content that is authentic to who you are.
Yeah. Good advice.
So the content that I create, right, when you see me do the lifestyle, that's because that's who I am. I've always been the go-to person in my family and friends. Where do we go? What's here? What's there? So it came very natural. Whenever you're trying to do something that doesn't come natural to who you are as a person, it's going to reflect on the video, and it's not going to perform as well as you think. So, for example, I first started creating content, where you kind of go around the house, you're moving your hand across the granite and all that, the showcase. That wasn't me, and it wasn't performing well either, because it didn't feel right to me. That's not who I am. I don't do that, right? But I'm trying to replicate what everybody else is doing. So
that's good
right?
advice. I mean, if you're a high analytical, it's probably better for you to do market knowledge, market reports, talk about the market metrics. Well, if you're somebody who spends all day in the office analytically seeing the world through an analytical lens, that's going to be where your highest value comes to your audience. Where if you're somebody that's a socialite and you're just always, or if you're you live in a golf community because it's the most important thing in the world to you, then that's the voice. That's your avatar to attract the the clients that would be most attracted to you. Good point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm glad you closed with that, Zoga. Appreciate that. This was really fun. I really enjoyed sitting this one personally, because I didn't know a lot of this stuff. So I appreciate you sharing, Zoga, freely like you do. We have a recording session at the end of the month, don't we? So we're going to be getting back to you. You'll see some content that Zoga puts out with us on it. So appreciate the time, Zoga. This will be the recording. If you couldn't catch the whole thing, guys, we're going to put it in our Facebook page. So look for the Facebook page, Market Makers Media, or Market Makers Weekly Mastermind. And we'll have the recording posted in there tomorrow. We'll also text everybody on the list that this recording is available. If you couldn't watch the whole thing, you just happen to miss it. So again, thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you next week again. Same time, 1 p.m. Eastern, every Wednesday, guys.
Thanks, everyone.